Okay, friends, this is Marquita drawing with you today. A hyena, and it says drawing with a pencil, outlining the basic shapes first. So here I'll begin just looking at the top of the head of the hyena, and I draw lightly. I like to always draw lightly, especially if I'm going to go in with paint later, which is something we'll do. So I start off with the top of the head, come down to the snout, work my way into the mouth and around the chin area. Let's see here. I take a look at the portrait of the photograph, and just if you need help with shapes, go over it like I just did with the pencil. Go over the image you want to draw and just kind of pretend as if you're practicing drawing that outline. I like to work with shapes. I always just look at the shapes of everything that I draw. How can it compare to a certain shape that I already know how to draw? Some round off as circular, some are triangular. The ears, for instance, kind of pointy at the top but round. So just kind of look at everything. I'm going into the eye area here very lightly too. The ears. The snout, I'm rounding off, giving it more shape. So when it's time to paint, I'll let the paint do all the extra work. I'm using watercolor today. So at this point of the drawing, I'm going to start to give the mouth more detail when it comes to the teeth, the forms of the teeth. You can even add your own shape of teeth, make it fun, make it your own hyena. And that is as much detail as I'm going to give him. I might even give him more expression here in the mouth where the creases are when you smile. Or in this case, I believe this hyena is yawning. But hyenas are interesting because they have, let me be sweet about it. They're not that cute when either they're getting ready to eat, growling. Hyenas are not the most fun to look at, but I love the colors within this hyena, and I thought it'd be fun to capture with watercolor today. So friends, keep in mind, even though the video may be moving a little fast, you can always pause, go back, which is the beauty of this replay. And yeah, so you can try, either you do it your way or you can follow my direction. So yeah, just slow it down if need be. Okay, so now we'll begin to paint. I'm using a basic Prang watercolor palette. They're a little softer watercolors. But I want to start off with the lightest light, a yellow. I put a lot of little yellow in an area on my palette, which already has paint, but it's dry. I just love going back and reusing. It saves paint and it just works easier. It takes practice to get used to all that, but you just got to be smart with your colors. So I put the yellow in an area where I know I'm going to use other colors around it. So what I was just pointing at with my brush was the mane, and that's the type of brush that I'm using. The mane that I'm going to put the highlights of yellow in, because it'll also be shades of brown too, but I'll go along with you in that area. So I'll start to mix my yellow with just a little bit of brown, just a little like less, like a crumb of brown. It was dry brown that was already on my palette. So I used that to mix with the yellow, which is already wet. And then I'll begin to go into the mane in the areas that are the lightest light. I love the flat brushes when it comes to capturing wider areas in the drawing, as well as being able to capture the fine hairs, the shapes, the direction it goes to. But it makes the job a little faster. So now I'm starting to use a little more brown into the yellow. I just slowly add more darker colors as I go darker into the image. I want to make sure I still have yellow available to go back to as well. So I leave that on the palette too. And I'm looking at the image where I want this darker brown to go, how I want to feature it into the drawing. Making sure I stroke with the brush correctly, as far as where the hairs are formed, and look at the fine details of the hair and the mane of the hyena. What direction is it going? That helps capture the animal better as well. So here I have added darker brown. I also wanted to note I am not using watercolor paper, which is, it's okay. But if you want a better outcome of your painting, get some watercolor paper. It is great to have, and your paper won't wrinkle up or get torn if you use too much water. But I know how to kind of work with it on regular printer paper. I'm just being a little lazy. Excuse me. So in this area, I'm watered down a brown, and I'm coating the wider area of his mouth and the nose with that light brown. Like you can barely see it, but you can still see compared to the other colors on the paper. This will help when it comes to details like of the fur or the creases in the face. Like once I put those fine details in with like a darker color, like a black, it'll help capture the portrait of the hyena a little better too. Just having that background light color brown. This hyena is a spotted hyena. There's about 4 different types of hyenas. And I just love the colors that blend within this hyena. So here I am going in with a lighter gray. And that's another part of the lightest light when it comes to the dark, maybe blacker areas. They're different shades of black. Gray is a shade of black. So I'm going to go in light with gray first. And once I capture that gray areas like I want to, which you'll see, I'm going to come in darker. Shade and shade darker. So I love different shades. I have to capture that when I paint. You can capture it also with pastels. Certain markers that are professional markers, regular Crayola markers, won't really do the job. Crayons you can do, and color pencils as well. So after shade and some details with black in the ears, around the eyes, around the mouth. I went in with darker brown around the mane, as you saw a little earlier, defining more of the mane and the shapes of the fur. I'm going in now with a light pink in the mouth. You can play with this area a little bit too. You want to add a little red in darker areas where you feel there should be some darker areas. And I don't do too much here, too much detail. But I also go into the teeth. The teeth are kind of yellow. So I even saved some yellow from earlier and add that into the teeth too. You want to throw in a little bit of brown in the teeth, make it a little interesting. Do that. You know, play with it a bit.